do that. We also need leadership from her. Oh, that is going to be a foul on Jewel Lloyd, and they're going to take a look at that.
Yeah, that might be upgraded. See, Jewel, as she was fighting over, I think felt that she got hit, but then she just went right in. You'll have a chance to see it on this replay.
Minimum, it'll be a personal foul on Jewel Lloyd.
That right there, that is the sound of a dream being stolen. That isn't just the heartbreak of a tough loss. For thousands of narrative analysts watching, that was the moment the emotional dam broke after a season of frustration. Lexie Hull wasn't just breaking down over a final score, she was reacting to the culmination of a systemic failure, an officiating crisis so deep that the league has been desperately trying to cover it up with fines and silence. The competitor videos you saw focused on one game, one bad call. They told you the Indiana Fever were robbed, but they missed the real story. They never asked why it was allowed to happen. Today, we are going to connect the dots and show you the proof. We will expose the season-long pattern of questionable officiating that led to this disaster and reveal the league's coordinated effort to silence the very coaches who tried to warn them this was coming. This wasn't a mistake. It was an inevitability. This is the kind of deep dive analysis we live for here. So if you believe the story behind the story is what truly matters, do us a favor and smash that like button. It's a huge signal to us that we're on the right track, and it fuels our next investigation. To understand the crisis, we have to start with the tipping point, the final minutes of Game 5. The Indiana Fever, a team decimated by injuries all year, a team nobody expected to even be here, had pushed the defending champion Las Vegas Aces to the absolute brink. With the game tied and under 30 seconds left in regulation, this happened. You don't have to be a professional referee to see it. In the most crucial moment of the season, Aliyah Boston, the Fever's all-star center, is disqualified from the game on a call so questionable that the announcers themselves couldn't believe it. The Fever's challenge failed. Jackie Young sank the free throws, and Indiana was forced into overtime without their anchor in the middle. But for anyone who had been paying attention all season, this moment wasn't a shock. It was the predictable, explosive result of a problem the WNBA has been actively trying to sweep under the rug for months.
It was rigged. Like, the Indiana Fever fought so hard, but they literally had 8 injured players. They had 8 injured players, and Aliyah Boston fouled out for phantom fouls, and they still got to overtime. Like, you can't deny that. The Indiana, they did everything in their power to try to rig that game in regulation, and Indiana just didn't go.
But how did we get here? A call that controversial in a game that important doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It happens when a problem is allowed to fester, unchecked, for an entire season. And that, right there, is the story the league doesn't want anyone to talk about. Okay, many of you watching have been connecting these same dots on social media for weeks, and you were on to something massive. Because the real story isn't about one bad call, it's about a full-blown systemic crisis in officiating that the WNBA has actively tried to silence. Our research confirms that throughout the 2025 season, the officiating has been a constant source of controversy. It got so bad that multiple head coaches, some of the most respected minds in the game, felt they had no choice but to speak out publicly. Cheryl Reeve of the Minnesota Lynx was vocal about her frustrations, and who was one of the first to back her up? The Fever's own head coach, Stephanie White. Weeks before that infamous Game 5, Coach White was already on the record, aligning with Reeve's critiques and saying, "I think at some point there has to be some accountability." And what was the league's response to these calls for accountability? Did they launch an investigation? Did they promise reform? No. They issued fines. They fined Cheryl Reeve. They fined Stephanie White. They even fined the Aces coach Becky Hammon for her comments. The message from the league office was loud and clear: stop talking about our officiating problem, or we will make you pay. they chose to silence the truth-tellers instead of fixing the problem they were exposing. What do you think when you hear that? Is finding a coach for demanding accountability a sign of strong leadership, or is it a cover-up in plain sight? Drop your verdict in the comments below. This is the critical piece of context that changes everything. The league knew they had a crisis on their hands. They had coaches from multiple teams telling them the officiating wasn't good enough. And instead of addressing it, they tried to bury it. But a problem that big doesn't stay buried forever. It just waits for the biggest possible stage to explode. But while the league office was busy writing checks for fines, they made a critical miscalculation. They could silence the coaches, but they couldn't silence the fans. And the fans saw everything. This wasn't a narrative invented after Game 5. The digital evidence shows that for weeks leading up to the semifinals, a growing portion of the fan base was already on high alert. Social media threads and Reddit game discussions were filled with predictions that the officiating, not the players, would ultimately decide the outcome of the series. Narratives of a tilted whistle favoring Vegas and complaints about phantom fouls weren't just sour grapes from a single loss, they were the dominant theme of an entire playoff run. The league could ignore their coaches, but the collective voice of thousands of paying, watching, and tweeting fans is a force of nature. It's a roar of frustration that sounded a lot like this. That right there is the raw, unfiltered truth the league tried to suppress. It's the voice of the consumer, the very people the WNBA needs to fuel its explosive growth, declaring that the product is flawed. Fans saw the pattern. They saw Aliyah Boston getting officiated differently than other stars. They saw the momentum-killing whistles that felt just a little too convenient. They saw the crisis unfolding in real time, long before it reached its boiling point in Game 5. The league wanted a story about its incredible on-court talent and thrilling playoff matchups. Instead, thanks to their own inaction, they got a story about a crisis of confidence in the very integrity of their game, and no amount of fines could ever hope to cover that up.
We can win. This is a 0-0 game, 5 minutes. We do those situations in practice. I mean, it took everyone. I mean, O had an incredible night tonight. People just stepped up, and I think, you know, when we were starting that overtime, we all five, everyone on the bench, playing or not, we believed we were going to win that game. So I think that just goes to show you that we believe in each other and in ourselves, and again, I'm just so proud of us.
Just continue to build that foundation for what the Fever can be next year, the year after, etc.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we have a lot of the same players back. You know, it's pro sports is another weird one where every season is different, teams look different, but I think every new player we had this season came into the locker room and felt that connectedness and added to it. So we were really lucky that we had built such a great culture here, and that'll continue year after.
And this widespread fan outrage is what makes the quiet, defiant belief inside the Fever locker room so much more tragic. Because while the world was screaming about a rigged game, the players themselves never lost faith. This wasn't a team that felt sorry for itself. They were forged in the fire of a season filled with adversity. As Lexie Hull confirmed after the game, their coach, Stephanie White, had prepared them for this exact moment of chaos. We're built for this moment. Think about that mindset. Down their superstar rookie all season, battling an unprecedented wave of injuries. They never saw themselves as victims. They saw themselves as warriors, hardened by their journey and ready for the fight. That belief was so strong, so unshakable, that even after losing Kelsey Mitchell, even after the referees controversially sent Aliyah Boston to the bench, they walked into that overtime period absolutely convinced they were going to win. That is the heart of a champion, the absolute, unwavering conviction that even when the entire world is against you, your fight and your togetherness will be enough. And that is what makes Lexie Hull's eventual heartbreak so devastating to watch. Her breakdown wasn't the sadness of a simple loss. It was the crushing weight of a horrifying realization that in the end, their belief didn't matter. Their fight didn't matter. Their incredible, odds-defying resilience didn't matter. The outcome had been taken out of their hands. This is the real and human cost of the WNBA's officiating crisis. It doesn't just affect the scoreboard, it undermines the very foundation of competition and shatters the faith of the athletes who pour their entire lives into the game. Now, in any objective analysis, we have to filter out the noise and acknowledge all sides of the narrative. Skeptics of the stolen game theory will correctly point to Game 4, where the Fever were the beneficiaries of a massive unforced error. In that game, Aces coach Becky Hammon mistakenly called a timeout she didn't have, resulting in a crucial technical foul against her team. That single mistake absolutely helped the Fever, even the series, and force a deciding Game 5. And that's a fair point. But here is the critical distinction that changes everything. A coach making a mental error in the heat of a playoff game is part of the sport. It's a human mistake, accountable to the scoreboard. It is not the same as a season-long, systemic officiating crisis that the league was repeatedly warned about by multiple coaches from multiple teams. One is a mistake within the rules of the game. The other is a crisis that threatens the integrity of those rules. The fact that the league resorted to fining coaches like Stephanie White, Cheryl Reeve, and even Becky Hammon herself for speaking out proves this was a known, festering issue. The Game 4 timeout was a chapter in the story of the series. The officiating crisis was the story of the entire season. Conflating the two isn't just a false equivalency, it's a deliberate attempt to distract from the much larger and a more damaging truth. And that larger, more damaging truth is what puts the entire WNBA at a dangerous crossroads. This isn't just about one team's stolen dream anymore. This is about the long-term health and integrity of the entire league. The WNBA is in the middle of an unprecedented explosion in popularity. Viewership is shattering records, arenas are selling out, and a new generation of fans is investing their time and money into the sport. But that new audience is also more skeptical, more online, and far less tolerant of any suggestion that the game isn't being played on a level field. The league's single, most valuable asset isn't a player or a team, it's the fans' belief in the legitimacy of the competition. When a deciding playoff game becomes dominated by a viral rigged narrative, that asset is severely damaged. This isn't just a public relations nightmare, it's a direct threat to the business. With intense pressure for officiating reform already mounting and critical new collective bargaining agreement negotiations on the horizon, the perception of a league with an integrity problem couldn't come at a worse time. You cannot ask players, broadcast partners, and sponsors for more investment when the product you're selling is perceived as fundamentally unfair. The league's failure to address its officiating crisis isn't just a black eye. It's a self-inflicted wound that threatens to halt its historic momentum right in its tracks. So when we filter out all the noise, the conclusion is as clear as it is damning. The controversial ending of Game 5 wasn't a random mistake or a one-off bad night for a refereeing crew. It was the inevitable, explosive outcome of a systemic crisis the WNBA was warned about and actively chose to suppress rather than solve. The league's strategy of fining coaches into silence didn't fix the problem it guaranteed it would detonate on the biggest possible stage. Lexie Hull's heartbreak and the righteous anger of the fans isn't just about a stolen game. It's the human cost of a profound failure of leadership that put its own image ahead of the integrity of its product. So what's your take on all this? Who is most to blame for what happened in Game 5? Was it the individual referees on the court or the WNBA leadership that ignored the warnings all season long? Let us know your verdict in the comment section below. We are going to be tracking the league's response to this crisis all off-season. This story is far from over. Make sure you are subscribed with notifications on so you don't miss the next chapter in this investigation. And finally, if you have a friend who only saw the headlines about the loss, share this video with them. Every narrative analyst deserves to know the real story behind why it happened.